Kylo Ren, and you're listening to Craft Brews and Geek News.
So welcome everybody to another episode of the Brewmasters.Club cast. Here is what you have to look forward to in tonight's episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump all these trash cans.
God damn!
Well, is it?
Sounds like you're barfing. Sounds like you're barfing.
Not yet.
Give it the old.
Oh, God.
Now, this envelope, is it full of beer or is it several kegs? Because it sounds like quite the task.
It's like a gallon bag inside a brown envelope where if you don't ship it right, just...
Yeah, and the difficult part is actually getting it to its location. So do explore upon that, right? Do they accept Lousebucks?
No one actually accepts Lousebucks.
Like a ghost train.
Ghost train? God damn!
I like to think about the statistic where there's a town of 10,000 people and 8,000 of them drink beer, and I'm like, the children. Like, are they included? Are there some like drunk fourth graders, or like what's happening here? Gotta throw not enough breweries and wharfs these days.
Nintendo is really the only bunch of drunk assholes in this fight that is like, we're every two years we're gonna do a cassette, then a little cassette, then a top cassette, then an inside cassette, then we're gonna change it to a little tiny CD, right? A little tiny CD. Then we're gonna go away from the CD. We're gonna do regular size CDs, right? Regular size CDs, and then we're gonna stick with the regular size CDs. Okay, everybody calm down. We're doing small cartridges again. They'll never know. Like, what the fuck, Nintendo? Like, that's what Nintendo just did.
This is a restricted area. Drill or something? Negative. Fine by me. I hate drill.
You crazy mother...
Welcome to the official podcast of the Brewmasters.Club, craft brews and geek news. Sit back, pour yourself a pint, and let's get into it. Now here's the founder of the Brewmasters.Club and your host, Donnie Gallagher.
Welcome, craft beer. My name is Donnie, and I am the official host, along with two other co-hosts tonight, of the official Brewmasters.Club podcast, Craft Brews and Geek News. Thank you for being with us this evening. I am joined tonight by my good friend, Mr. Louseman. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm doing quite well. Doing good, man. I'm happy to be on the show tonight.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Mr. Rye Guy. How are you, Brood Boy 813?
I'm doing very good and staying cool outside on my patio this evening.
Weather's fantastic tonight. You can't really mess with that.
Nope, not at all. I love it.
Excellent. Well, what did you just tune into? We are, as I mentioned, the official Brewmasters.Club podcast. We are going to talk about national stories, local flavors, and our favorite nuggets of geeky pop culture. We always start off every episode with the epic segment. What are you drinking? What are you going to drink? As I hinted to the boys here on the show, I have a very old-timey favorite, but I'd like for Mr. Rye Guy to fill us in on what he is trying this evening, because he is our resident brewmaster. You're up to what, 37 batches now? I'm keeping track.
I'm glad you are, because I kind of stopped at 30.
Well, good. Good on you.
This evening, as I made a lot of people aware, if you follow us on our Facebook page, there was a bunch of beers that I tried at Gus's house the other day, and one of those was Stone's Imperial Stout, and it's called, I'm gonna mess it up, Chakoveza.
It looks like Zokoivez.
Well,
there's when you need him.
Yeah, I think it's called Chakoveza, to be honest with you.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
I think the X is silent, or somewhat. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And it's inspired by Mexican hot chocolate. It's a stout brewed with cocoa, coffee, peppers, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. And I got to tell you, it's a fantastic stout. You really get the nutmeg. You really get the cinnamon. Once it gets... well, it's a little cold out here, but once it's a little warmer, you really pick up on the cinnamon, the vanilla. Not too much heat. The peppers that they use, I forget what they're called. but just an overall really good, complex, and tasty beer. So get your hands on one of these bad boys.
That's fantastic. Your lineup at Gus's look pretty badass.
Right off the bat, cinnamon all day, but also finishes well with the chocolate. So
is it a sweeter stout or is it drier? I mean, what is it?
It's not dry. That's for sure. The vanilla makes it semi-sweet, yeah, but the coffee is robust in it, so it's really well balanced.
All right. Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty good to me. The good news is, again, we're coming into that weather where it's like, 70 degrees here in Florida. So we're breaking out the sweaters and the Ugg boots, and it's nice dark beer drinking weather.
Oh yeah. Well, and I had a I had a sequence earlier, so take whatever you want at this point. But yeah.
Good. Well, Mr. Lossman, what are you drinking, bro?
I'm heading back to an old favorite. Been here before. We'll go here again. The old Victory's Golden Monkey. Absolutely delicious. It's one of my go-tos. It's, of course, Belgian-style triple, which is seeming to be a trend with me these days. And it is with added spice. And I always read that whenever I'm hanging out, just staring at the bottle. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you can taste the spice. They just put handfuls of that in there, and it's a delicious little tasty treat. So
Ryan, this of the one I'm drinking particularly, I thought you would find the most interesting, only because this is an oldie but a goodie, as I mentioned in our Facebook group, which is Craft Brews and Geek News. You can simply search that on Facebook and join today. We can talk about conversations and pitch stories. We can ask questions and get your questions answered if you simply join that group. But this was a fan favorite and something that I've enjoyed for a long time. It's called the Midas Touch by Dogfish Head. This is the beer that is over 2,700 years old. They found in King Midas's tomb. 2,700-year-old beer here. Essentially, this Patrick McGovern is a scientific director of the Biomolecular Archaeology Project for Cuisine, Fermented Beverages, and Health at the University of Pennsylvania. He and his group discovered this tomb, King Midas, that was 2,700 years old. And there was not only a body that was that old, which they have actually documented was that old, but there was 160 drinking vessels next to the body. A lot of them were gold, made out of pure gold. And in the vessels themselves, some of them were merely powder. None of them actually can contain real liquid in them, but chemical residues inside of them provided molecules that actually answered the analysis as to what was in them. So King Midas was actually buried with 160 gallons, essentially, of gold vessels that contained beer, which is amazing. And from that beer, Dogfish Head, the experimental brewery, which we'll get into, I think, tonight, made this beer. They've been making this beer since 2000, or actually since 1999. It's different. It's somewhere between a wine and a mead. It's an ancient ale, and it's just a very interesting barley, honey, muscat grape, and saffron beer. So take that as you wish, but I saw it today, and I was like, holy shit, I can't say no to that. And it's 9% alcohol, so very interesting.
Drinking a piece of history there, Donnie.
Oh, seriously. The thing is, when you drink it, it almost drinks like if you were to mix a Hefeweizen in like an American ale. It's got a little sweetness to it, but it's not overbearing, and it's still got a little bit of a malty note, very low on a hop flavor, but it's very drinkable. It's tastes full body, but it doesn't drink heavy, and the clarity is there. I mean, it's pretty.
Does it drink like a Belgium almost? Like the lightness of it, or I know it's an ale, but
it's weird. It's lighter. It actually drinks more like the Golden Monkey. That's a great example. Because it's still heavy. It's not a very light beer, but it's not. Belgian has like a banana bread kind of flavor, right, that really like grabs your palate and kind of sucks it up. But no, it's just interesting. So it was like $3 at the liquor store just for this one single. So try it out and see what you think. But to drink a piece of history, like you said, go at it, man. All on you. So I suggest trying it out just because it is so unique. So good on Dogfish Head for doing what they do with their ancient ales and experimental beers.
Love it.
Come on, cool.
Extreme.
It is extreme. Did you have anything to say about the extreme beers, Ryan? We've hinted on these extreme beers that Dogfish Head makes now. I didn't know if you had something lined up.
Yeah, no, go to Dogfish Head's website. They'll tell you all about it. They've in November there's going to be a book released on brewing extreme beers and just pushing the envelope on craft beer. There's also going to be about 40 or 50 different recipes, and Sam partnered with the writers of, I think it's Beer Advocate, to come out with this book. And they've also got a couple of videos there on their website that you can see, and they just push the envelope. And just like that beer that Donnie's drinking, what makes a beer distinguishable, what makes it extreme is what they focus on. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Now, this envelope, is it full of beer or is it several kegs? Because it sounds like quite the task.
It's like a gallon bag inside a brown envelope where if you don't ship it right,
and the difficult part is actually getting it to its location. So do explore upon that, Ryan.
I will. I might find some beer while I'm at it.
All right. So as you guys know, first off, as you guys, the podcast hosts here know, we were extremely lucky to be in this position where we have the ability to talk to some of the high, low, new, different folks in the brewing industry. And some of those folks that we spoke to recently were at the Brewers Association. If you tuned into our last episode, it was a live episode, but it was we interviewed Julia from the Brewers Association, and she gave us some insight. The original ask came from the brewer seal, right? Like we had talked about this before, how there's a little upside down bottle, which we were a little bit critical on, just diagnosing what it may look like. Jump in if I'm wrong, but so we were critiquing, playing devil's advocate as to what people might take out of this label. But the label played a huge part of the Great American Beer Festival, which was earlier this month. So I reached out to the Brewers Association to say, hey, we'd love to talk to you guys about this and see how it went at the Great American Beer Festival. So in doing so, we lined up an interview, and at that time, about 24 hours before we had our interview, the Brewer Association actually released their campaign, hashtag Take Craft Back. And what that is essentially a crowd. If you haven't heard from it by now, it's a crowdfunding campaign to buy Anheuser-Busch for $213 billion. A fool's errand, if you ask me. But the Brewers Association is wholeheartedly doing this, and they're doing it from a couple different reasons, and for some awareness that is, I think, really unnoticed unless you actually really understand what it is. So I have an interview here that I have a couple of clips broken down. We've got about 7 minutes here that I can play for you guys. And I haven't broken down the clips, so we can kind of break down each one. But if you guys don't mind, I'd like to go into this if you're on board with that.
Definitely.
Yep. All aboard. Toot.
Cool. So I'll start at the beginning, and basically this is the intro to the interview. So let me just play it from here, and we'll see where we get. Just to let everybody know out there, what is your role within the Brewers Association, and what kind of stakes that you have in some of the recent news, namely the independent seal and this new campaign to take back craft, which we'll get into in just a moment.
Sure. The Brewers Association, for those of you that don't know, is the national nonprofit trade group that represents the majority of breweries in the United States. I'm talking to you from Boulder, Colorado, and we definitely have staff based here is our home base, and then we have staff all throughout the country. And what you're asking about is the Independent Craft Brewer Seal that we launched late June, which we now have more than 2,400 independent breweries from the U.S. They don't have to be members of ours even, but if you are a craft brewer in the U.S., you can use that Independent Craft Brewer Seal. Happy to talk about that, but we want people to seek the seal and look for it if independent ownership in breweries matters to you. And then our second recent effort, at least on the promote side, because we do a lot of protect work, we do a tremendous amount of work on safety, sustainability, and technical side of brewing as well. But on the promote side, takecraftback.com is an amazing amazing new grassroots effort, and you should check out the website if you haven't. We're really using the funny in this one, and we're not used to doing that, and that's a beautiful, freeing thing, because I find that funny helps, open doors to the heart that then opens thought to the mind, and we're really going after trying to highlight that small and independent craft brewers have been affected by the buyouts from big beer.
So I played that for you guys, and I think that it was important to hear what she had to say about using a little bit of hyperbole, right? A little bit of comedy, Ryan, to get to the heart, to get to the mind, so you can influence people and what they think, what they see, what they're talking about. I personally think that's very cool. I think that's a lot of fun, and I think that they did it right, right by doing that. It's like a museum, using a very silly tactic to attract new visitors. I just think it's very progressive. So I want to hear what you guys had to say about that first piece that she mentioned.
Yeah, I don't quite know exactly what sort of comedy she's referring to.
Well, the comedy piece is that it's $213 billion. So the comedy
talking about potentially buying. Okay, I get it now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
I got that.
If you didn't read anything about it, which I understand, you would know. But what that is, and I don't think I have it covered in here, but crowdfunding, right? Because the Brewmasters.Club is crowdfunded. If we were to crowdfund this successfully in the United States alone, like with all borders closed off, it would require $628 from every single United States citizen. So every person in the United States, the entire population would have to donate $628, every single one of them. Do you understand the comedy of that, right? Like there's no possible way they can get every single, you and me and Ryan included, to donate $628 per person. If every person in the entire world donated, it would be $10 a person. For every person in the world.
Do they have payment plans? Because that I could afford.
You need a payment plan for $10?
No, for the 600 and some.
I'm a little broke myself.
I got that right now.
Yeah, that's gonna hit me hard. But
can I get you tomorrow?
Lousebucks.
Yeah, I got gas money.
They should have.
Hey,
they should put that in Lousebucks. That'd be awesome.
Do they accept Lousebucks?
No one actually accepts Lousebucks. You know what? You should talk to them. You should just email daddywarbucks@anheuserbusch.com and see what happens.
Side note to that last man, you should find out what makes Bitcoin so, awesome, and then make it Lousebucks version of Bitcoin.
Oh my God, that is something we should do.
What is Bitcoin?
Laos and all those, we are not getting to a Bitcoin conversation right now. Laos, Chet and all those guys.
Tune in
Chicago,
for next week's podcast.
All those guys in Chicago are into Bitcoins, and I don't even know what to do about it. Like they're really into it. So
there's some stuff, man, that people are getting rich off that. I have no idea how. Like honestly,
it's like all right. Stop. No, stop. We're not going there.
Next week.
Anyways, next week.
Tune in next week.
I'm playing the interview, so we're gonna keep going with the interview. Okay, you guys good with that?
Yep. Oh yeah.
All right, we're moving.
And there's a lack of transparency going on now where it's really hard for a beer lover to know when they're holding a beer in their hand if it's from an independent brewery or not. So a lot going on to really just help keep the movement going.
So that piece in particular is talking about literally how transparent. So remember the story that we covered, and it was like the brewery was bought by Anheuser-Busch, but they didn't announce it until like 7 months after the deal was closed because it was Brewer Kid.
Yeah.
Or Rate Beer. It was Rate Beer. Was it Rate Beer?
Rate Beer. No, it was a company that wrote and it was a web company or something like that. It was like behind the scenes to Rate Beer. But they were a part of it. They owned like 25% or 15% or something like that. Yeah,
Budweiser AB owned like 25%, but they didn't announce that until like 7 months down the road because they didn't want everybody to stop going to the site and just condemning it, right?
Right.
Which is what happened. Which is what happened. So like that was our episode like 46 or something, and when she mentioned transparency, that's exactly where my mind went. We're losing that veil of transparency, and now it's just being like a sheet that's drawn over things, and it's hidden, and it's because you have to like kind of slow drip this stuff out, or else people get pissed off.
Yeesh.
Stone has the seal.
Yeah, Stone's got the seal. I see that. My Dogfish Head doesn't have it just yet, but
that might be an older package, but I know Dogfish Head is independentely owned. So.
oh yeah, I know they are too. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the beer is 2,700 years old. I don't think the packaging is.
Heck of a bottle.
Heck of a
Survived the
battle.
times.
So let's
Yeah,
continue on here. We're like almost halfway through this.
Yeah.
But there's a couple good points that come out of this. What makes you, or what is identified as the independent craft brewer?
I'm a home brewer, and I went to college in Tampa. And many of the people that you are probably talking about are near and dear to the spirit of my heart and what's going
Excellent.
on. And so
Excellent.
I love being a home brewer. And the Brewers Association, in one iteration, we actually started in one iteration under Charlie Papazian as the American Home Brewers Association. So home brewing's huge to this whole effort.
Yep. Which again, you're a home brewer, Ryan. I'm a home brewer. Lost is a home brewing observer.
Aficionado, really.
Oh, well, yeah. Toot. But that's interesting, right? Just to get the piece that even the Brewers Association started out as a home brewing community, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of found their niche, and that's why they have so much appreciation for it, because essentially that's what they were doing.
Well, they probably had that thought process that one day as they were getting more and more into brewing and into craft beer, and then being sold a bill of goods on the companies that were promoting themselves as craft beer, but really owned by larger corporations and larger businesses. So that's the take I kind of got from that. Like, it evolved into it, just starting at home kind of thing, and that passion.
Yep, I'm with you. Lost man?
Sort of really hoping somebody's going to chime in with a whole like Walter White type situation and be like, yeah, I'm a home brewer, but I take it everywhere. I mean, wouldn't that be cool if somebody's home brewing out of an RV, and just being like, yeah, man,
And then
I
tenting
just go anywhere with
houses.
it. Well, no, wait, nope, that you took it too far.
So did he.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I don't know if you guys have watched that series recently, but me and Jenny are literally in the last 2 episodes, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this. See, like, why is Jesse? What is going on? It spirals. Like, is he doing it to protect Skylar? I don't know.
I feel like that's how it would be if I watched every 99 episodes before this last one of The Walking Dead. Like, just
we keep getting derailed so hard. All right, let's go to the next one here.
Like a ghost train.
Ghost train. God damn.
There is, frankly, still 1,000 towns or more that have populations of 10,000 or more people that don't even have breweries yet. So this movement and momentum is still going and has room to grow, but the cooling off of growth is really starting to occur.
So what she mentioned there is
a thousand
What's going on and so on.
a thousand towns that have a population of 10,000 or more that do not have a brewery.
That's right.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's what I find is astonishing, is that we say there's a bubble where it starts, and she mentions it, and that's why I want to get back to this interview. But a cooling off period, a decline in growth, right? But maybe not. I mean, when I hear a cooling off effect, I consider that a decline in growth, right? Or a static amount of growth, as in it's flatlined, right?
Well, I took that statement as saying, I mean, within those 1,000 towns, I mean, 10,000 people, if even 75 to 80% of them drink on a weekly basis, I mean, that's pretty good for a small brewery. If you're servicing 8,000 people on a monthly, I mean, that's a lot of beer being served. You can still make a lot of beer. You might not have the distribution, get into the stores. You might not get on every tap in other places, but you're going to be able to service those areas. Now, if 2 goes in there, 3 goes in there, I mean, it's just like gas at that point, like gas stations and things like that. But you have the ability to grow in a small community and start. And it's I think that's more of a challenge and a good thing, a positive look at everything. And there's going to be breweries that start up right now that, that adds to that 5,000 bubble. There are craft beer breweries that are going to start up that are not going to succeed for one reason or another, whether it be maybe they just give up, they don't make good beer, whatever the case may be. So there's always going to be that revolution there. But those small towns, man, there's still hope for making more and better craft beer. And that was probably one of the best takeaways that I got from this entire interview. Right there,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, there's still a chance."
I like to think about the statistic where there's a town of 10,000 people and 8,000 of them drink beer, and I'm like, the children. Like, are they included? Are there some like drunk fourth graders, or like what's happening here?
It's that drunk like English baby meme who was just like, you man.
Yeah, I feel like that's the town that we're talking about. Are we talking about that town?
We're not talking about town. All right, let's continue on. Let me make sure I know where we're at. Just
That's why I said 75%.
yeah, I got you.
7,500 people. I mean, that's still a lot of drunks.
All right, we're gonna continue on.
So the Independent Craft Brewer Seal is a certified mark to say from the Brewers Association that you are a craft brewer. And what that means is you are small, producing less than 2 million barrels of beer a year, and you're independently owned, and you are traditionally practicing in the beer you make. You don't make flavor malt beverages as the majority of your beers, for example. And 98% of the 5,700 breweries in the United States today are small and independent. But yet that group of 98% of the breweries only has less than 13% of the beer share by volume.
A lot of fractals flying around here.
That's huge. That is huge.
No, I'm glad Ryan was able to pick up those fractals. It's true. So essentially, you boil it down, Lost Man. 98% of the breweries in existence today are independent craft breweries. And of those 98%, only 13 are represented, which is nationally. What was the?
Nationally, 13%.
Yeah. So that's tiny. That's a very small. That is opportunity, right? That means that there is a huge portfolio waiting to be opened. But go ahead.
There is, and I just had an idea that I'll share later. But
like a giant portfolio, like a huge folder. I like that.
Something like that.
Like leather bound, perhaps. Yeah.
We could even. What do they call it? Embossing or something like that, where you put it.
Oh, okay.
Make it
very
fancy.
Nice. Good touch.
Damn it, Louse.
Damn it, Louse. If I had a nickel, I'd have 1,000 Lousebucks. I was at the store today picking up a couple of different beers I thought were really, really good to try. One was a Cigar City, and then the other a Dogfish Head. And I went to the counter, and when you do your make your own 6-packs, they charge you $11.99. And the guy was like, "Oh, did this go up to $13.99?" I was like, "No." I was like, "It's $11.99." He's like, "Oh, well, I know they're going to be raising the prices soon, because craft beer is more expensive, yada yada yada." And I started talking to him a little bit, and I was like, it's not that craft beer is more expensive, to be honest with you. Like the distribution companies pay a pretty good low rate to then be able to sell it to you. And they had no idea about any of this, by the way. When I had a conversation, I'm going to segue now a little bit. When I had a conversation with a local craft brewer, they told me that distribution companies get paid, like the CEOs, they get a lot of money at the end of the year if 95% of the beer that's sold is of a particular brand. Meaning like AB InBev, the CEO of distribution companies and things like that will get a bonus. Yeah.
So what she said just there is that 98% of the craft beer that's out there versus the 2% that's owned by like the major companies, only 13% of the market share is there to actually have us experience it. And that's because the major corporations are paying the distribution companies bonuses for making sure that their beer is pushed. And that's kind of what the illusion is, that craft beer costs more. I don't think it does. I think because they sell higher volumes, AB InBev can keep their costs a little bit lower. But it doesn't help that what's being pushed by the companies is, that CEOs get paid more for distribution companies and things of that nature. So that kind of ties in. I had a better thought process till Last Man threw the embossing of the leather books at me, but there's almost no real. I mean, the craft beer seal is great, but there's almost like it's harder to push because the major corporations have the marketing, they have the pull, they have the shelf space, and that's why it's tough. So I think that mostly makes sense for my conclusion there. But any thoughts on that? Did that come together well? I was hoping it did.
No, it totally did. Before I flipped to Laos, I just wanted to say yes, like absolutely, because maybe he was actually getting in big trouble for that up north in the New England market, because they were paying for taps. They were saying, hey, listen, you know, they were influencing their distributors, and those distributors were influencing the bars and the restaurants that sold product, and said, listen, if you only serve our product, we'll give you $10,000 a month or whatever. And that was a lower opportunity cost to them than losing 3, 4, 5, 7 taps to local craft breweries. So fast forward to 2017, when those cases have been busted wide open. Good luck in doing that now, which they simply can't. But there was a time, Brian, when they really were. So that's absolutely valid. So I give you that for realizing it and saying that point.
I think I stumped the guy behind the counter at Shell's too. He was just like, yeah, because he had no idea that. And so they want to keep raising the prices at the store. I'm like, why are you going to raise the price? Like, I don't know what a distribution company pays for a 6-pack, but I know it's probably between like $2.50 to $5, somewhere in that ballpark. It's got to be, you know, right there. So raising the price on craft beer is not the answer for craft beer fans. It's actually keeping it competitively priced to your Miller Lights, to your Busch or Bud Lights and things like that. That's going to make the difference in the long run for craft beer.
All right, we're going to round up this interview and we're going to move on because we have shit to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Yeesh.
All right, last comments right here. I asked simply, you know, what the hell is this take craft back thing? I want to know what it is. I'm sure Louseman wants to know what it is because we've talked about it now for 2 episodes and he has no idea.
I'm dying.
Be my eyes, Goose.
We're taking
All right.
craft back off the shelf and drinking it. That's what we're doing.
That's right. All right, here it is. We're going to listen to the snippet and then we're moving on. This take craft back initiative. So you mentioned there's some poking fun at it, but I mean, what is the real goal here? Is it to say, listen, you know, wake up in this fun and really, pardon the pun, but refreshing way to talk about craft beer, and by taking a stab at an industry giant that has, I remember the 2015-16 Super Bowl ad about a peach IPA, that the stab there. I mean, they've got some swagger that they're throwing around at craft beer. So it is refreshing to see craft beer throw a little bit of that shine back at them.
Yeah. One of the goals would be great, right? Let's fictitiously pretend we actually were to buy AB InBev. And we would like to see that beer lover demand in the marketplace is what sets the shelf and the restaurant menu. That would be a great goal to get to. And right now, just based on the power and the prowess of big beer, which is frankly to be admired, right? Like they're so powerful. They are helping decide what gets on the shelf in the restaurant menu. So love to see beer lovers setting that tone and having retailers really in tune with what their customers want and not being swayed and distracted by behind the scenes conversations that aren't always advantageous, frankly, to the retailer sales and really reflective of what the customer truly would buy. And we're all about different beers, different occasions. It's not about isolating to one specific brand. We're on a big beer journey in this country now. And frankly, finally, we have diversity in beer. And the U.S. is the #1 destination for beer on planet Earth. And part of that is because of big beer. And, you know, they got American lager on the map. But what craft brewers did is they brought the full flavored movement to the scene and the localization of beer movement and brewery tours and brewery tourism and economic benefit and that cultural contribution, Danny, that you're talking about.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that. We're not talking about that. But yeah, so she had a very good point though. Beer tourism, you know, economy, right? That it brings to a local area. And so we went on in that interview to talk about how when a small brewery opens in a rundown or unused neighborhood because there's warehousing there or something like Tampa, right, where breweries move in, all of a sudden mom and pop shops open up and there's a cafe there and there's a coffee house and then all of a sudden there's a little market there and business starts to flourish all because craft beer came there. So I think it's huge, right? Closing arguments, boys. Give it to us, Ryan. Start off.
No, I was just gonna say, I haven't been back to Zephyr Hills yet, but I know that's the effect that Zephyr Hills Brewery is having on that area because there's a lot of little shops and there's an old city, but it's kind of run down, and I think that's going to start coming back. So to that point exactly, that's what craft beer does, and yeah.
I think the bottom line that I'm hearing here is more craft breweries in Scooby-Doo style neighborhoods. And I'm for that. I like that. That's pretty cool. I mean, I've gone to weird places for a brewery. Like I've been.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah.
I've been traveling, and I've gone to a very weird place that I would not go to if there wasn't a brewery, and kind of found some things along the way. So, gotta throw not enough breweries and wharfs these days. Let's get that on the map.
Wharfs and breweries aside, there is something that we need to move on to, and that is our Geek News section. Do we drink it in, send it back? Louseman, kick us off. We had a triumphant trifecta of a Thursday, right? No?
What?
Sure.
Oh yeah, no. We had a really good Thursday. Basically, Wolfenstein New Colossus, Super Mario Odyssey, and Assassin's Creed Origins came out today, which is probably the busiest day for video games that's been of all 2017. So interesting. But I know that, Ryan, you may not have a lot of interest or I mean, not interest, but you may not have a lot of insight on this. But me and Louseman were talking before the show, and I just wanted to grab his quick opinion here before we move on. But basically, dude, 3 huge games, and I just want to caution this. We'll give this about 5 minutes. We can talk about it. Then we got to do 5 minutes for fan questions because we actually have fan questions to answer tonight. So we're gonna go nuts on those. And then I want to hear Louse's opinions as to what's going on with these 3 games: Wolfenstein, New Colossus, Super Mario Odyssey, and Assassin's Creed Origins. Who's going to sell the most? Who's going to be the underdog? And then who's going to be left there just whining, crying that they launched in the same day as these other guys?
I'll just go ahead and take the lead on this one. So one of your first statements, who's going to sell the most? So I'm going to immediately discount Mario on this one, and only on the premise that, I know that's a little bit of a shocker on this one, but only on the premise that the new Mario Odyssey can only be played on the Switch. Switch isn't exactly, if we're all honest, in every household at this point in time. So I'm going to say that only because of that. No, not speaking to the game at all. I'm going to say that one might not move as many units as some of these other 2 games. Now, with that statement being said, I love Wolfenstein and New Colossus. The trailers and all the footage and cinematic trailers and everything like that, they've been just this wonderful, hodgepodgery of just gore, and it's a great, weird, different timeline of how things could have been, and it's just every part of it. I mean, even down to the Facebook posts that I've been seeing. I mean, they will. It's this little franchise of learning to speak German, and it's these weird little things. But then at the very bottom line, they say phasing out English by 2020, or it was 2048 or 58 or whatever. And they say it very nonchalant, but that kind of weird overtone, and the backing that Wolfenstein has had since it was, a side scroller. I think that one, in all honesty, might take the cake on this one. But that, in lastly saying, not to take away from any steam from, no pun intended, from the Assassin's Creed Origins. I mean, Jesus, the whole game's been trying to figure out where you came from, and they've done it yet. So this is probably going to be a big one for them. If this is what happens if the Templars come from the pyramid style temples, I mean, I don't know, that kind of weird stuff could happen in this, but yeah, it could totally be it. So I'd say the AC line is going to give New Colossus a run for their money, but if I had to say who's going to move the most units, I would actually go ahead and bank on Wolfenstein on this one.
See, but what? Okay, so thank you for that. No, that's a good insight, and it's very different from what I had to say, because Wolfenstein is the only one out of this lineup that has an R rating. So that immediately cuts out every 13-year-old gamer who has a mom or dad like ours who would have not bought that or returned it if they did buy it, and B, cuts out anyone who physically doesn't have the age requirement to purchase the disc at the store. So I think Wolfenstein is absolutely out in terms of being number 1 sold. Assassin's Creed, I think that just like you, how you're kind of pissed off with Assassin's Creed and where it's gone, but you've played it once and they've had how many? 7, 8 renditions of the game?
Yeah, a ton.
So in Black Flag, my personal favorite, Black Flag was amazing, right? But I guarantee they learned a lot from that, and they said, well, let's give it some more RPG, let's give it some more gusto to it, and I promise you that when people are playing it, which they probably are already playing it now, which if not, it'll be midnight tonight or tomorrow, or playing the game, they will. I promise you that they carry that over. So I think that out of curiosity alone, Assassin's Creed will outsell Wolfenstein. Just because I get it that Wolfenstein is this gnarly, gory game, but we've had Doom, we've had other stuff. They never broke the box office. I think Assassin's Creed will sell more units. What you're underestimating is Super Mario Odyssey. I believe you when you talk about how the Switch hasn't sold as many units as the PS4 or the Xbox One, which I totally agree with. When Breath of the Wild, so Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out, they sold 1.4 units per Switch. As in, if you had a Switch, you would have bought 1.4 versions of the game. That means that people that have the Switch bought not only one game for themselves, but they bought another game to either give to someone else or to have separately, which doesn't make any sense to me. But this is what happened statistically in the actual marketplace. They bought more versions of the game, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, were purchased than actual units of the machine that could play them. Think about that now that you've got a game like Mario Odyssey, who hasn't had a game come out since 1996 Super Mario World on the Nintendo 64. I think in terms of units or in terms of dollars, I don't know which one it will be, but it will certainly surpass the other two competitors right here. That's my prediction. Ryan?
Well, I'm going to throw a curveball in here at some point. Having played Assassin's Creed, I'm just going to say I think that one will be the most purchased.
Ryan, given all the time we just gave you, you could have watched trailers for all 3 of those and given us your honest opinion.
I did see a clip about the Assassin's Creed. It looks kind of cool. So anyway, but what I do think will be the bigger story or harder thing to do is for all of those people that are going to be playing those games today, will they put them down to watch Stranger Things 2 tomorrow? That's the question.
Yeah, that is amazing, and that series itself is also amazing. So we will cover that probably in the next session here.
We will.
Also with Super Mario Odyssey, because my copy of Super Mario Odyssey is currently about 60 miles away, due to show up here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So I'm excited, and I'm one of the people that supported the theory that I put out there. So we'll see what happens.
So are you going to play or watch? That's the question. No, I really don't have much. I don't have much to add to who's going to sell more. I hope they all sell and do well. How's that?
No, we have our predictions, and that's A-okay.
Yeah.
I have one more question just for Lousman, just because the announcement came today of more and more games coming from the backwards compatibility piece. So Louse, as an Xbox One owner, give us your 2-minute synopsis of what's going on and why backwards compatibility is a thing and why it's a good thing.
Absolutely. So this is actually one thing that I think Xbox, the whole Xbox company, has done a very good job at. They may have tripped on a few other things. They may not have done some other things very well. They may not have some of the best game lineups, but one of the things that they did knock out of the park, in my opinion, is their backwards compatibility, in the form of, it is now to the point where you can, with an Xbox One or an Xbox One S, you can actually play the original discs that you had for your Xbox and Xbox 360. So we're not talking about 3 different systems. If you would have bought some select titles, you can now just pop those right into your brand new Xbox One or Xbox One S, and you can just, apparently I've heard that you can pick right back up from where you started. With that,
which is awesome.
That's been sitting on your shelf for maybe 10, 15 years now, and you can now play it again on your brand new flat screen TV with your brand new Xbox One and just kind of keep on jamming. So that is fantastic.
Which from a competitive market that is console gaming. Think about it. I mean, that's basically saying now, if as an Xbox One owner compared to a Switch or compared to a PS4, you have access to not only your Xbox One games, but the ones you love from 5, 10, 15 years ago, almost going back to the original Xbox, which debuted in the early 2000s. So I think that's fantastic. I think it's low hanging fruit. And if you think about Xbox as a Microsoft PC, why not? You as a PC owner can pop a game in there from 96 and it would still play. Ryan, you had a point though?
Well, no, my side question is, what does that do to all of those consoles that are being sold with all of the, like the Xbox, whatever. I mean, what does it do to the market for that? People aren't going to buy. Like my dad, he has the original Xbox. He played for 10 hours and has sat on a shelf. It works perfectly. Nobody's going to want that now because they can play all the games on the newest one, right? So
yeah, well, the difference
just a
is,
thought,
Yeah, the difference is that original Xbox worth like $20, and
Well,
the new
true.
one's $500.
Well, no, but you see where I'm going. Like all of the other Xboxes that came before this one, they're going to be, I mean, they're basically worthless now because they can play, which is awesome. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, I don't know. I don't have much gaming knowledge, obviously, but I have a question about the market for all of the used consoles, evidently.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, these are just like cars. So I hate to break everyone's, or burst everyone's bubble on this one, but the second a game leaves the shelf,
It's outdated.
It's outdated, yes, but none of the actual manufacturers, they never see another dime. They use the actual shelf. It's gone. It's no longer. They don't get any sort of money off of a game being resold or a system being resold or anything like that. So that's not even in their wheelhouse. The very second that you buy a brand new game, they get their money. That's it. That's done. It doesn't matter if they sell it. If somebody plays it for a week, trades it back in. None of that goes back to them.
But see, that totally changes the script when you look at games from 2017 that now have microtransactions where you buy loot boxes and you have to buy this stuff or else you don't get the upgraded weapons or clothing or gear or or guns or whatever it may be. That, my friend, has changed completely, and that is a story for another day. But continue on with your point.
Well, the only point I was trying to make is that that all these manufacturers and all the studios that make these games, they don't actually they've never cared about the resale, and they never will care about the resale because it doesn't actually impact them. What they're trying to do with something like this is they're actually just trying to make themselves apart from the rest. And
Xbox. He's saying Xbox. Microsoft and Xbox is trying to do this as saying, look what we can offer you if you purchase and invest in our console.
Yeah, they're trying to add value without dollars. And so they're just trying to say, hey, you remember all that old crap that you got lying around? You can play it again. Look at Louse's video game closet, man. He's got Xbox games, then Xbox 360 games, then Xbox One games, right? So now his one system can play all of them. And PlayStation used to do that. They used to be able to play the PS1, PS2 on your PS3. PS4, it's all blanked out. Now they could patch that, right, and fix all that. But Xbox is using that as a selling point, which I think is smart.
Yes.
Yeah. When I booted up my Xbox One for the very first time, it told me I had 60 games. It was over 60 games to just download, just because I had purchased them digitally and they were backwards compatible. So they were like, "Yeah, you're ready to go. You got 60 games." I was like, "What?"
Nintendo.
My mind for having that.
Nintendo is really the only bunch of drunk assholes in this fight that is like, we're every two years we're gonna do a cassette, then a little cassette, then a top cassette, then an inside cassette, then we're gonna change it to a little tiny CD, right? A little tiny CD. Then we're gonna go away from the CD. We're gonna do regular size CDs, right? Regular size CDs, and then we're gonna stick with the regular size CDs. Okay, everybody calm down. We're doing small cartridges again. They'll never know. Like, what the fuck, Nintendo? Like, that's what Nintendo just did. Like, I just gave you the entire from 1983 of what Nintendo was. That's exactly what it was. Why?
The newest is like a little chip too, right?
But it's not a normal size chip. It's a unique chip that you can only have. Shh. If you own a Switch, you can have this. If you don't, shh, don't tell anybody. What the fuck? There goes backwards compatibility for Nintendo. They will not win that fight, I promise you. But Xbox is killing it. We have to move on. All right. So that was good. All right. So for the first time, we got literally two minutes. Lightning round. Ryan, this is for you and Louseman. You guys got 20 seconds each to answer each question. We are doing our fan questions lightning round. Okay.
What was the first bid, Tom?
20 seconds? The first one alone is going to take me a minute.
Nope. You have 20 seconds to answer each question I'm going to throw at you. I have questions designed for both of you guys. These are coming from fans, people out there on the inner spheres, the interwebs. They're asking things. We want to answer them. If you don't know the answer, just say you don't know, and we'll move on to the next one. Ready, Ryan? You are first.
Yeah. What's the first question?
All right. Richard J. asks, ball lock or pin lock, what is better, and what is he talking about?
Yep. So that's the two styles of kegs. You have your corny and you have your Sankey. Go with the Sankey. That's the ball lock. It keeps the seal better so that none of the CO2 comes out. The other one, which is the corny keg, is what predominantly is run by or used by home brewers. That's a great tool for doing different beer events. However, the seal around the top can become loose and the CO2 could come out, forcing your beer to be less carbonated when you use it. So learn how to unpin. Learn how to unpin a Sankey keg.
So a pin lock on a Sankey keg is the best.
Yes, go to Lowe's, get yourself some little tools that you can undo the pick, and then watch my video that I sent to Donnie about 5 weeks ago. Which
I've never posted. Right. All right, we'll do a separate episode on that. Okay, moving on, Ryan. We're going to the next one from Norman A.G. Haven't seen any info on this one. Bottles in the fridge are okay for the first few weeks, but the longer ones foam up on opening. Any thoughts besides drinking faster? Ryan, go.
Get a keg to stop bottling your beer. No, in essence, it's just being carbonated longer because you probably had a lot of sugar. So try to figure out your sugar volumes for the beer, and then if you are bottling your beer, give your beers at least a week and a half or two. That's probably why you're not getting the carbonation that you want. But definitely invest into a kegerator. Learn how to, with the first question, get a ball lock pin and or pin lock if you want to, and figure out how to force carb your beer with actual CO2.
Ding, that's it. So stop putting so much sugar in there, or go easy on it, or just get a kegerator. Last question, Ryan. So your next question is from Jake G. 2 brews in a row. My OG is only 1.05 to 1.052 IPA and a double IPA. What am I doing wrong?
So my first question is actually, or the answer to to his question is a question. Did you measure the gravity at the beginning or the end? Because 1.05 at the beginning is probably not too bad. 1.5 at the end, or 1.05 at the end. What was your original gravity? Let us know, and then we'll figure it out.
Good. Way to make up some seconds there. Thank you, Jake. Please let us know what you think on that one. Mr. Louseman, how are you feeling this evening?
I'm hoping I'm feeling froggy. That was a lot of rapid-fire questions.
Well, here you go, bud. It is your turn now from Mario L.B. Jr., by the way. He has a question about Star Wars. You ready?
Ish.
Okay. So when Ben Kenobi saw the droids, he looks like he's never seen them before. Did he get amnesia as well?
Oh, boy. I don't think so. He may have just... there's a lot of droids in Star Wars. He may have just mixed them up. I mean, I recall certain stormtrooper who couldn't figure out any droid from any other droid. That's all I got.
All right, good answer. So the answer is maybe. Second question, same setup. Uncle Owen was talking to C-3PO. It looks like he's never seen him before. He lived with C-3PO for almost a decade. Why can't he remember?
Clearly his memory was wiped. However, I would like to point out that C-3PO also doesn't speak Spanish. There's languages that he knows.
Good answer. How does that make any sense to what I asked you?
He knows bocce. He just doesn't know Spanish. It's an important one in this world. I'm just saying.
Moving on. Louseman, why does Ben Kenobi address Anakin as Darth? Like, that's his first name. Why doesn't he use Vader, which he knows is technically his first name?
That's one of those tricky first name, middle name, last name things. I would say he calls him as Darth because I mean, he probably calls him Darth because it might have been pretty Darth in there. I don't know.
Okay, all right. And that's the answer. We have 2 more questions from Mr. Louseman.
Oh, these are getting rough.
All right, ready?
A lot of questions.
So from Matt S. Louseman, if Luke went into seclusion and did not want to be found in The Force Awakens, why did he make a map for someone to find him?
Oof. Boy. So
15 seconds.
Oh man, he probably made a map. I don't think he made a map for people to find him. I think he made a map himself to get out. That'd have been cool, right? Or maybe it was if he ordered pizza. I don't know.
Definitely pizza. Thank you for playing along.
It always goes back to pizza.
Last question. Pick one thing you would remove from Star Wars.
In all honesty, this is going to sound like I'm really just nitpicking here, but I would probably remove Han Solo's best friend. Or I'm sorry, not Han Solo. I'd probably remove Lando's best friend who looked like he had flapjacks for a face. Yeah, I didn't really care for that guy.
Really? I like that guy. I like him a lot.
All he did was chuckle, and he's in all the actual Battlefront games, but I don't see why. He didn't actually do anything, and he was kind of a crappy pilot. So
don't you think there's a handful of people out there that might actually have said Jar Jar? Just saying.
Everybody would say Jar
Jar.
Jar Jar, sorry.
No, I like Jar Jar. He's the dumb comic relief at times.
I agree to that.
I actually like Neon Nub. I like him a lot. And I don't know what you want to say, but I like him a lot. So
I wish you were gone.
I wish he was gone. All right, fine.
Just all together.
Well, boys, that brings us to the end of the show. Who had fun this evening? Did you guys have a good time?
We did.
All right. Well, I'd like to take this moment just to say, thank you guys for your questions. Thank you for engaging with the show. This was I think the rapid fire is how we're going to run every show now. It's very good, very interesting. And I'll just prey on you guys, and I can just pitch things that you may or may not know, and I think that's great. But if you want to engage with the show, please let us know. Do so via Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook at the Brewmasters.Club on all of the above, or you can independently reach out to each of us. Mr. Rye Guy, where can the good kids find you?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram at BroodBoy813, and you can find me November 4th at Kitty Fest in Market 48.
And Louseman, where can the good fans find you, buddy?
On Twitter at Mr. Louseman. Always a good place to find me, or just in any sort of beard shop or whatnot. I do frequent those these days. And
if you want to contribute to the show at all, please do so by just using the hashtag BrewmastersClubCast. You can get a hold of us that way, or use the Amazon link posted below to support the show. We appreciate you guys, and as we say on every episode of the Brewmasters Club,
keep it salty, my friends. Do you want to do it again?
Go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And as we say at the end of every podcast, Mr. Ryan,
this is the podcast you're looking for.
There we go. That sounded better. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Last man, go ahead. You do one, and then we're fucking ending this.
All right. You gonna key me up?
Yeah. Okay. As we say on the end of every podcast,
these aren't the droids you're looking for, but we have some iPhones in the back.
It's over.
You've been listening to the official podcast of the Brewmasters Club, craft brews and geek news. Grab a beer with the guys and be sure to subscribe to catch additional content. Add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Chat with the guys on Twitter at Brewmasters Club and Facebook and online at www.brewmasters.club. Cheers!